Welcome back to Journey to Vault Warrior. I'm Campter. If you have not seen the first video explaining what this series is, the breakdown is I am attempting to go to the Keyforge Vault Warrior Championships. That being said, I don't know how far I can get, but this is a journey from practice to my first qualifier to see if I can make it as far as I expect. Last episode, I talked about going and playing in a tournament with a group of people in a local card shop, and this is kind of the result of that. First off is, how did I do? I went 2-1. I actually took second place. The shop actually hit its largest numbers for a Keyforge event, but that doesn't say much considering last week was 4 people, and 4 is usually the standard amount of people. But with myself, my friend Trevor, and the 4 usuals, 2 other people came and played this week. So there was a total of 8 people, and that did pretty good. We did 3 rounds of Archon. If you do not know what Archon is, it is their version of Standard, where you bring a deck of your choice and you play one game with it against your opponent. And one thing I've already noticed while playing Archon is that I struggle with understanding cards on the deck list. And I'll pull out my deck list to kind of show. I have a hard time knowing what cards are because I haven't played the game enough to really understand what everything is. There are some cards that I played with and I'm really familiar with, but there's 2 sets of cards essentially that I have to memorize if I really want to have a cutting edge in this kind of game, or at least in this format. So my options are to essentially do homework and memorize over 400 cards, give or take, or at least memorize what's really kind of potent and what's being played in a competitive setting. I also need to get better about misplays. I've been doing a lot of quick and aggressive plays because of nerves and overall kind of jitters when I play. And I have not thought things out. There's a couple of times where I miscalculated the board states. I reaped instead of attacking, and then used certain cards to deal damage. It was kind of a bad play. Now that being said, the games that I did make misplays on was a game that I was already losing on, and the games that I kind of saw the smaller misplays, I did actually win. So to go into it, I did go in with my deck. I'm going to put the link in the description down below. Here's the name of the deck here. This deck worked way better than expected. If you didn't watch the last episode in the breakdown of what the deck is, it is a Dis, Untamed, and Shadows deck. And what makes this deck very potent is some of the cards in the deck. The cards being Pawn Sacrifice, Control the Weak, and what else was there that I kind of brought up? But those are the 2 main ones. They won me my games. I have 4 Control the Weak, and what the card says is I can choose what faction my opponent plays next turn, and I gain an Amber. I can play that up to 4 times in a row and really kind of decimate when my opponent plays. And using that card in my first game, I was able to stop my opponent from comboing off with his Shadow, Dis, and Mars, or Shadow, Logos, and Mars. He wanted to really draw as much as the cards as he wanted, and he had a card, I can't remember the name of the card, but it said when it comes into play, you steal, or you give your opponent 1 Amber, and then when it's destroyed, you get to steal 3 Amber back with Elusive. So the card in that deck is supported by a bunch of sacrifice cards and cards that will let him continuously generate Amber through this card and steal it from me. I wasn't allowing him to do that because he didn't have enough sacrifice cards on his side of the field, and when I would be able to had the Amber for him to steal, I would actually aggressively take the card out beforehand and then rebuild the Amber supply afterwards. So it was a very nice back and forth, and I won the game because I forced him into a position where Pawn Sacrifice cleared his board, and then I forced him to play a faction that I forced him to play Logos, which doesn't have as much Amber kind of blocking mechanics as, say, something like Dis or Shadow. So I stopped him completely on my third key, or on my second key, and prevented him from stopping me from forging my third one. So that's how I won the first game. The second game, I played against a Sanctum, Logos, and I believe it was Mars? I believe it was Mars. No. Let me double check here. Mars, Shadow. Doesn't matter. The big things is, this is the game I lost. I lost because the opponent had a lot of very strong creatures that synergized well. A lot of his deck went wide. The board at one point, he had about 9 or 10 creatures on the field, and I only had 3 or 4. My stuns, control the weaks, and pawn sacrifices just could not keep up with his board. I got him. It was 2 keys to 2 until he just generated like 9 amber in one turn, even with my tricks in Dis to kind of stop him from generating or costing his key to it was Lash of the Broken Dreams, which said keys cost +3, and I couldn't stop him that round. And I made a couple of misplays. I forgot I had an archive, which I did not utilize. I think that could have generated enough amber for me to forge a key, but he was stealing a lot of my amber, so I couldn't stop him there. And that was like the big loss. He went on to win, so he actually took first when I took second. And that was kind of like the hardest kind of weakness, is this deck can take out a lot of smaller creatures, but if he keeps buffing and bringing cards back, and I think he had Archimedes where every time a creature died, they actually went back into his thing, so he could I couldn't keep him into the graveyard. He kept just recurring them, which was really, really bad. But that was the game I lost. It was a very close one, but I misplayed and lost that one. The third game I played was a combo deck, and it was a deck that relied heavily upon archiving essentially majority of his deck using Logos, and his Untamed would kind of just infinitely combo with a couple of Witch cards. I can't remember what they are offhand, but every time a creature would come into play, he would play the cards and then bounce them back with other mechanics, and then play them again. And then with this Witch, he was gaining like amber in one turn with half his deck as an archive. He was able to generate 17 to 18 amber, and I could not stop that when I saw that happen. And this was a casual format, so I did watch some other people's games. Luckily enough, I had a little bit of foresight going into this match, watching that game, because it was next to me. So I knew to prepare and kind of force him out of playing Untamed as much as possible. Well, he also knew my deck list because he was a more experienced player, and I talked to him about my deck last time. He knew that he was going in against 4 Control the Weaks, 3 Pawn Sacrifices, 2 Pennies. The deck played phenomenally. I got all 4 Control the Weak, I got all 3 Pawn Sacrifices, I got to use Penny multiple times, Silvertooth came into play, which was the card that comes into play ready. I got to stun a lot of his creatures, I kept him from really gaining life. This deck, I wouldn't allow him to get his board ready. He did get 2 artifacts on his side from Untamed. I think it is like you get to, if your opponent has 6 or more amber, you get to take 1. And so I had to be very careful to not overdevelop my side of the amber field and kind of play around those cards. The turn that I won, I actually used Control the Weak to stop him from going into Untamed or Logos, and I think I forced him into Sanctum, and I was right at 7 amber, so he couldn't take away 2. He only was able to take away 1, so I was able to kind of get through this narrow window of his amber control to kind of burst through and just play around it. So that was the third game. It was a very, very uneven one, I will say. The deck worked phenomenally well, and I think that is the most not underbalanced. What would be a good word for it? It was very lopsided. That's a good word for it. Very lopsided in favor of me, and so I was able to go 2-1, which was fantastic. Trevor, this was his first event in a card game in a long time. He went 1-2, but he had to play some really tough opponents. He actually played against that combo deck round 1, and he was unfortunately the victim to that amazing combo. So thanks to him, I was able to play around it. And game 2, I believe he played against one of the newer people that came to the shop this week. He did all right. I didn't see his game because it finished up before mine. But he did it in good spirits. Good on him. I definitely know how it is to go into a new setting and get your ass kicked. But he did a good job kind of supplementing that play skill in his third game, where I think he went 3 keys to nothing and played against a kid who bought a deck that day and was playing it, who was, I don't want to say the kid was like at a disadvantage, but this was his first time playing, and the kid was great. I think everybody there had a great time. They felt bad because they're like, well, we got to leave at 1. It's like, yeah, you can play as long as you want. Like, we have no problem with you leaving. Like, don't worry about it. So, but yeah, that was this week. Very, very good turnout. Going into these and progressively getting better. I know there's going to be times I'm going to go 0-3. My goal next is to win. I want to win. I don't know if I'm going to play D-Man or if I'm going to take another deck with me, but that's where the next goal is. So I'm excited that today was a very good day. I will say taking second place is not common for me, and that is definitely a morale booster. So that was the update to this week's tournaments and kind of gameplay. I do have something else I want to show. I bought a deck, so I have not looked at it. I have seen the deck list, but I don't know what a lot of the cards are. So we're going to go through and check out Miss Q's Fleet Blade on camera, just as a little extra bonus content. Alright, so here we are. Miss Q Fleet Blade. I like the name. It's quaint. I would give it probably like a 6 out of 10 as far as names go. Very easy to say, but not really fun or interesting as we've seen with previous decks in my portfolio, and just overall some of the ones that we've seen across Reddit. I'm not going to show the deck list. Let's put that over here. New camera setup for this one, so I don't know how well this is going to look. So we're going to start with our Shadow Kit. First thing we have is Special Delivery. Omni, sacrifice Special Delivery, deal 3 damage to a flank creature. If the creature is destroyed, purge it. Not a bad card, especially for an artifact with Omni. Night Forge. If you have not forged a key this turn, you may forge a key at +4 the current cost. With this current setup, I think it might be possible to have 10 Amber. Not a bad kind of just key cheat, as people have been calling it. Hidden Stash, archive a card, not bad. Just gets a card out of your hand for an Amber. Yanti's Gang, steal 1, pretty decent butt to a creature. Whistling Darts, not using much of this camera space. Whistling Darts, deal 1 damage for each enemy creature. It's okay. It's comboed well with some other cards, but I don't know if I can really utilize it. Umbra, always a solid card. Ooh, 2 Umbras. A Swindle, Alpha and Omega, steal 3. I call this one a desperation card. I feel that when you play an Alpha and Omega card like this, where it's the only card you play in a turn, it needs to do more than just steal 3 Amber. It can screw your opponent, but I feel that it could be more. It could definitely be more. Then we're going to go here to Knuckles Bolton, Elusive Skirmish, 3, 2 of them. Gamgee, Elusive Reap, your opponent has more Amber, steal 1. And then Fruitive Investors, or Fervid, I can't speak today. If your opponent has more Amber than you, gain 1 for each key your opponent has forged. It's okay. You can gain 1 for each key your opponent has forged. You can get up to 3 Amber, 1 for this and then 2 for the keys. in a deck or in a game like Keyforge, you don't want to give your opponents the ability to forge a key. So this is if you're losing card, it gets better. You never. It's a hard thing to say with something like that. So I'm gonna pick these up really quick. Scoodly-doo over to the next faction, which I'm guessing is going to be this. No, it's Logos. Alright. Our rare is Scientific Hack. Omni-Sacrifice Scientific Hack, or Scientifical Hack. For the remainder of the turn, you may use friendly artifacts as they belong to the active house. We'll see how that goes. Considering I didn't see any, well, I think I saw one artifact in that deck. Rocket Boots gains Fight Reap if this is the first time this creature was used this turn. Ready it. Pretty decent card. 2. Okay, that's pretty cool. I'm trying to think if there's any. Well, there's a lot of skirmish cards in this deck. I think that would be a good kind of combo with some of the cards in Shadow. Then we have Memory Chip. After you choose Logos as your active house, archive a card. That is an artifact. And then we have another artifact, Bouncing Death Quark. God, I can't. Bouncing Death Quark. Destroy an enemy creature and a friendly creature. You may repeat this effect as many times as you like, as long as it is possible to repeat this. That doesn't get destroyed either, so... Okay, so I can just one-for-one trade with this card. Oh, I wish there were bad pennies in this deck now, because that would be really, really good. This creature gains another upgrade card, actually. This creature gains destroyed. Put this creature on top of your deck for 1 amber, which isn't bad. I think you can definitely do better. Wild Wormhole is always solid. Titan Librarian at the end of your turn. If Titan Librarian is not on the plate, archive a card. Archiving things really good. Pip Pip. After enemy creature reaps, stun it. That is a great card to slow your opponent down if they're trying to generate a lot of amber, but it's 2, so you have to really find a way to protect it. Play to archive a card and 1 amber. Not bad. Hexbion. Archive Hexbion and the top card of your deck. That is a solid card to build up an archive. Archimedes, elusive. At each of Archimedes' neighbors gain destroyed, archive this creature. Not bad. What does this say again? Okay, this has Omni, so this can be played on any turn, so I can use, potentially, looking at it right now, one artifact, it looks like, on this side. Everything else is an upgrade. Yeah, I can use it to trigger a few abilities this turn. But not bad, not bad at all. And finally, our Shadow. Creeping Oblivion. Purge up to 2 cards from a discard pile. This card is very solid, especially with combo decks. If you kind of see what's going on, this is a great counter card. I feel that that is a fantastic rare and a way for you to really hinder your opponent, especially if they like to draw a lot of cards. Deal 3 damage to a creature. If it's not destroyed, its owner discards a random card from their hand. Not bad. Anguish and Anguish. For each damage on Anguish, your opponent's keys cost +1 more. We had a Shadow card that gave every creature a damage counter. Very good. Yerk. Choose and discard a card from your hand. At first, some people might think that this is a disadvantage, but if you have things like Nightforge in your hand at the very beginning of the game, it's a good way to, first turn, kind of get an extra card in circulation. Streak. Elusive. When Streak is not on a flank, your opponent reveals their hand to 1 less during their draw step. Another card that kind of hinders your opponent is always nice. Schuler. If your opponent has 4 or more, steal 1. It's a great 5 attack minion that can kind of slow your opponent down, not by too much though. Misery Exploit. Gain 1 for each damaged enemy creature. That is very good in combination with that discard. There's 2 of them. Cold the Weak. Destroy the least powerful enemy creature for an amber. Not bad. Binding Iron. Your opponent gains 3 chains. Holy shit. Okay, that card is kind of ridiculous. That in combination with this guy, the Streak, that can really devastate an opponent's turn and really slow them down, which is nice. Oh my god. Okay, there are 2 of them in this deck. Actually, with the camera a little bit. And finally, the final card is Amber Imp. After a creature reaps, stun it. So there's a lot of stunning through enemy reaping. Trying to judge this deck based on that. My creature output is very small. Let's sort this out here really quick. Alright, so I laid everything out based on what kind of card it is. These are all my abilities, these are my creatures, my artifacts, and my upgrades. So we only have 3 upgrades from the logo section. The upgrades we do have are very, very potent. I'm trying to think what would be good to use these rocket boots on as a card. I'm trying to see. Let's see. Destroyed, elusive. Not really many reap abilities in the creature section, but I do have a good amount of skirmish. So I think skirmish cards will benefit the best. I think Umbra plus Rocket Boots can definitely be a good combo. If your opponent has more, that's not bad. Knuckles Bolton, yeah, another kind of skirmishy card. The artifacts, I forgot we do have special delivery, so we can use special delivery. Well, it doesn't matter. Memory Chip really doesn't. Scientific Husk doesn't really care about any of our cards in other factions, so special delivery plus Scientific Hack doesn't really do much. It's mainly using these, forcing this to happen. Well, no, that's a play effect. Oh no, that's actually an action. It's not even an artifact, so that goes on this side. Yeah, so overall, these are our artifacts. Kind of a dead card. I'm trying to think how you could really use that. This deck is very good about slowing your opponent down, forcing your opponent to have chains. You could potentially give your opponent 6 chains and take him down to 6 turns of 5 cards. And if they are a very chain-heavy deck, that will be kind of bad. Overall, I don't think I'm going to be playing this deck often. I'll probably play it in just kind of some casual matches to see if it will be good, but it's not, I don't know, it's not the most potent deck. It has some fun aspects to it. I might fishbowl with myself or play online on one of those fan decks, and we'll see how that goes. But that is Miss Q Fleetblade. If you think I am totally wrong about this, please let me know in the comment section down below. I'm very interested in what people have to say. So that's pretty much everything I have to update you guys on this week. Not sure how often I'm going to be doing a deck opening. Right now, we're going to be going into the 3rd set next month, so might not be opening too many more Age of Archon or Age of Ascension decks. I do like this set a lot more than the base set, but we'll have to see. Until then, thank you very much for watching. This has been Captor, and I will see you next time in the vault. See you then.